Okay, so welcome to today's class, everybody. I remember that we tried to do something about authentication in our last class, but we couldn't finish it up, and we are going to finish it up in this class. And also, we are going to talk about working with Postgres, so we can see how we uh we can also do CRUD operations with Postgres, but we are not going to use Prisma, right? We are going to use a library named Sequelize when we want to work with Postgres. Here, we're going to use a library called Sequelize, okay? And Sequelize is a library that's used for relational databases, particularly, right? So Postgres is one of them, right? I remember I said there are SQL and there are non-SQL databases. So PostgreSQL is one of them, right? One of the relational database, right? Okay. So let's see how we can actually do that. Let's see how we can actually do that. So I'll be sharing my VS Code screen very soon. Just give me a little bit. Let me open the file. Okay, let me reshare my screen for you guys to see. Okay, so I hope you guys can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen now? VS Code. Can you guys see that? Okay, cool. Now also another thing I didn't mention in our last class is the connection string to your Mongo database you shouldn't hard code it this way. Don't hard code it this way, right? It's not good because if your repository is public and someone reached through your code and this was a live link to your database, which of course a live link would contain your username and your password, the person might be able to, or the person would be able to connect, right? Or might be able to connect to that your database and read information and probably write information to the database. So instead of writing your database connection like this, the better thing to do would be for you to remove it from here. Remove it from there, you take it to env. Remember, then you say something like you say db url equals to that value. Remember that env is used to keep environment variables, right? And let's see. So we've done that. The next thing I'm going to do here is instead of having the connection string, I'll do something. All right, process.env dot db url db underscore url, right? So let's start the server again. Let's start the server again and see what happens. Let's see if the database will connect. So it's starting. Let's see. It should connect. It should connect. I don't know what is it's taking its time. Well, while it's taking its time to start, let's go to user. Okay, so connected to database, which means it still connects. Okay, so let's come here to users router or user router. I'll crash the server. So we did register in our last class, and let's see. Once you finish registering, what you might want to do is you might want to send an email here with an OTP, right? Now remember that user model just has full name, email, and password. But then, what if you wanted to do an OTP verification? So you could add a field here called is you could say is is uh is email verified. Is email verified would be a type of boolean, right? And then it's required. It's not required. The default should be false, right? So is email verified, or you could call it, yeah, is verified, or is email verified. As if you want to verify your email, you say is email verified or false. And of course, you know that any record or documents that is being created, any user documents that will be created would have this default to false, unless you make it true. So let's see, we've done that, we've added this field. Let's see how we can send OTP when they try to register. So you might want to come to your auth controller after creating, you might want to do something like this. You might want to say, no, you might want to have an OTP table, a table that keeps OTP and user ID, right? And maybe purpose. So let's do that. The purpose of the OTP. So let's do something like, let's come here, users, we might say OTP, OTP.js or OTP model.js, anyhow you want to do it. I'll just simply come here and just copy everything I have because I don't want to waste much time. Say schema. So this would be the OTP. This would be the user ID. This would be the purpose of the OTP itself. So the OTP itself will be the OTP you're storing, right? The user ID would be the ID of that particular user that requested the OTP. Okay. Then the purpose of the OTP could be so now anytime you're storing user ID, you shouldn't store it as string. You should store it as mongoose dot types dot object ID. Right, and this object ID should reference the user. So you do something like ref should be, wait, let's come back here. So the name here is users, right? When you come to OTP and say the reference, this user ID should be a reference to the users table. And I'll tell you why we did this thing, why we did this, why we had to do this here. You'll see the reason why we did it. Then the purpose would be, the purpose of course would be a string, and maybe the purpose would have will enumerate that it's either the person is trying to maybe verify email or maybe reset password. Okay. Sometimes if you want to um make this maybe more secured or something, you can add a, a temporary OTP key or OTP ID, something like that, which the user has to send with his OTP. Well, I wouldn't want to make, okay, let me add that, sure. Let me add it. So I'll say OTP 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 token. This one will just be type of string and required to the, what else am I supposed to do? This one is also going to be required. So the reason I put this OTP token here is I'll be sending OTP token and OTP to the front end. But then I'll be sending this OTP. Sorry. I'll be sending this OTP token to the front end while I'll be sending the OTP itself as an email to that same user. So the user has to provide this OTP token and the OTP before I can verify him. So once, in fact, you provide the OTP token, and the purpose for the OTP and OTP token. So I'll check, is there an OTP like that on the back end? Or first, I'll check, is there an OTP token that he's supplying on the database? If there is, I'll now check, does the OTP we have here match with the OTP the user is supplying again? If two of them match, I'll now say, okay, does the purpose the user supplied, does it match what we are trying to do here? Does it match the purpose we saved? If it matches, we use it. So let's see how we can do that. We've created this, and I'll call it, so this is not users again, this is a OTPs. We'll call it OTP model. Then down here in my auth controller, after creating the user, so const user or const new user should be equals to create that user, right? Then after that, I'll say I want to create the OTP now. Okay, so I'll say const OTP should be equals to so I have to import that OTP model. So I'll say const OTP model equals to require, then dot schema slash OTP. Okay. Then the next thing I want to do is, first I want to generate the OTP. So I could say something like generate OTP. And also there are places, it's not just when you register that I want to generate OTP. For example, when the user wants to reset his password, and I want to generate this OTP again. So now remember that there's a principle named dry. Don't repeat yourself in programming. That principle states that you should be able to write one thing, so a piece of code once, and then use it multiple times. So now in my utility, I'll just create a new file. I'll call that file generate OTP.js, because I want to generate OTPs using that file. So I'll then say const generate OTP should be equals to a function, and this function should return math.raw math.random times 10,000. So this is going to generate our OTP for us. And of course, module.exports should be equals to generate OTP that way. I hope there's nothing I'm missing here. Generate OTP. Yeah. Then in our auth controller, what we'll just simply do is we'll say const generate OTP should be equals to require dot slash utility slash generate OTP, right? So this, what we've written here is going to help us to be generating OTP every time we call this function. So now, in case you finish writing a platform and they tell you, oh, you wanted our OTP to be six digits, not 4 digits for every time the user wants to generate an OTP. You can just simply come here and just add 2 zeros and be rest assured that anywhere that this function is being called, it will generate a 6-letter OTP, but now it is going to generate four digits OTP. Okay, so let's come back here. And then let's call, so just say OTP is equals to generate OTP that way. Then I'll now say OTP details should be equals to wait OTP model dot create, because I want to create an OTP model. So now if we keep creating OTP models, right? Okay, this is register. So okay, yeah, I get. So okay, let me just explain what my thought process is. You know, as a developer, you're thinking of different scenarios. What if the user tries to come and register again with the same email? Of course, it's going to stop the user from uh, registering with the same email. So which means you can only generate an OTP once for emails, for registering, right? As far as unless you're not using the same email twice, then it will generate another OTP for verification of email. So you want to say OTP. So remember that I said OTP, like for example, if the key and the value are the same, you can just write OTP and write your command. Then what else are they asking us to do? What else? The OTP token. Okay, now the OTP token is going to also be random, and I'm going to use a library called UUID. So UUID is a library that's used to generate universally unique identifiers. So if you want to generate, like for example, a key or just there and a maybe an ID, maybe a custom ID for maybe a record, right? You can use UUID to generate it. Okay. So and we'll see the end result of all these things we are doing, sure. So we'll say UUID npm install. Now there's UUID and there's nano ID. You can go to npm and read the difference between UUID and nano ID, right? npm install UUID. So I would install UUID and let's see. Let me do something. Let me just demonstrate something here for you. Okay, can I do that? Okay, don't worry. I'm going to create a route that you can just use to generate UIDs later on, maybe. Then the purpose here of we generating this UID is, the purpose is verify email. Okay, the purpose is verify email. Verify email. Then the user ID here is going to be new user dot ID or dot underscore ID if you want to use underscore ID. Now, the difference between this underscore ID and ID is that underscore ID is the object ID type. It's going to give you an object ID type of the ID, right? Not a string type of the ID if you're using underscore ID. But then you use underscore, and but then you use ID if you want to get the string version of the ID, the same ID. So which that should tell you two things. That should tell you one thing, that user the ID generated by MongoDB can exist in two forms. It can exist as a string, it can exist as an object ID. Okay, and it's always object ID that your MongoDB use. By the way, MongoDB doesn't use JSON. MongoDB uses BSON. There is um there's an there's a type of object notation, right, called BSON, and BSON means binary. Um, JSON means JavaScript object notation. BSON means binary. I think binary script object notation or binary object notation. Yeah, binary object notation. So that's what MongoDB uses, right? So anytime you want to work with an ID or anything, right, or MongoDB's document, it's converted from JSON to JSON before it's given to your code. Then when you're trying to save, it converts it from JSON to BSON and save it on the database. I hope I didn't give too much information there. You might not understand it now, but bear it in mind. Later on, you will understand it. Then the next thing you want to do is to send an email. So you want to come here and say const something, send email. Now, before you send email should be equals to require dot slash utility slash send email, right? Send email. Remember that in our last class we wrote something here that we configured NodeMailer to be able to send email. So that's what we are calling. We are calling this send email JS in our user or in our auth controller. We are saying send email, which is this send email here. Saying is this file name, because you see it's inside utility send email, which is it. Then send email, which is so. Now let me say something I think I said in the former class. When you do something like this, when you write modules.export is equals to transport, like is equals to a particular thing. This is in a way your default exporting this variable, right? You're exporting by default this variable. So anytime, and you can do this once in your code, like once, like here we've done it once, right? If you want to export a named variable, you might want to use uh brackets, right? Or square bracket, curly braces to show that they are named. And of course, this should tell you this is an object with a key and a value. So of course that means it's named. It's a named export. But doing it like this is your default exporting this transport variable by default. Okay, then let's come back here. I think I need to reduce this. It's taking up a significant amount of my screen. Then what we want to do is we want to send that email. So I'll say send, I'll wait because it's a promise that if you send the email, send email, send email. What does it need from me? What does it need from me? Oh, send email. So let me rename this to SMTP. Let me just rename it to SMTP so that it will make sense. SMTP does send email. What do they need from me now? So they need two. Oh, they need from, which is me. I could hard code that, or instead of hard coding this, I can use the one from my environment variable, the email username here. So I could just come here and say I could come here and say process.env.username. Two, the two will be the email that was sent to register. So I'll say email subject. Subject would be verify email. So now it could be the name of your company, maybe company name, like verify email. Then the HTML here could be, now this is one of the reasons why they say before you become a backend developer, you should at least know HTML small, because the front-end developer might not be the one to be given or assigned the task of designing the way the email is to look when it is sent to a user. So if you are a backend developer and you don't know how to design a simple HTML form or an HTML file, you might struggle at this point, right? Even, and also apart from just sending emails, things like maybe if you are sent to generate PDF or generate a picture of something from the back end, maybe generate a PDF from data, most of the times that PDF um, would be arranged using an HTML or using HTML. And if you don't know how to write HTML, you would struggle. So I'll say div, just wrap everything in a div, you know. Then I could say h1 here, h1 email. Then this div here, I could say your email or your OTP is, then I'll say dollar and interpolation for people that are forgotten, OTP. So this OTP here is the one that was generated and also saved. Even if you do OTP details dot OTP, it's still the same thing because it's the same OTP that is saved here that you meet from here. Okay. Then um, um once you finish sending that email, the next thing you want to do is you want to, there's no need for me to even track what I'm saving here because I can always get it. So I'll say OTP there. So what I will do here is I want to add the OTP token, and I want to add the purpose of sending that OTP, of creating that OTP, which is a purpose. Okay. Then of course I'll create a route to verify that OTP. So I'll do that under here. So I would say async function verify OTP. REQ, Then um I'll say what I'm needing or what I'm expecting to be returned to me should be I'm expecting you to send an OTP token, I mean the front end, an OTP token and the purpose, right? An OTP token and a purpose why you are sending or you are giving this OTP. So I would know if what you're trying to use that OTP for is true. So this purpose prevents it that maybe you create, let's say you're trying to verify your email and then, or let's say you were trying to reset password and when you got an OTP, you want to now use that OTP to verify your email. So this purpose will stop that from happening. So we can then say first you say OTP details because you want to fetch the details of the OTP by the OTP token, if there's any token like that on the backend. So you say OTP details on the database, sorry. OTP details should be OTP model dot, this should be an await. OTP model dot find one. I want to find one where the OTP token, this OTP token should be this OTP token. Okay, then the next thing is I want to check what if the OTP token we are looking for does not exist. If it doesn't exist, then this OTP details here would be null, would result to null. So I want to say if there is no OTP details, then it means if it's true that there's no OTP details, then we want to res.send or res.status of 422. Then we want to send message, and then the message will say invalid OTP token. That's number one. Now you're checking if the OTP token. Remember that we generated a OTP token. Okay, we just wrote OTP token here. Okay, that we didn't generate it. So OTP token would be const. That should be equals to require. I'm going to explain what I'm doing. Version require UUID. And there are different versions of UUID. There is version 7, version 6, version 5, version 4, version 3, version 1 to version 6, version 1, right? There are all these versions, and I like using version 4. So calling this is actually a function. So once you say OTP token should be v4 like that. So you've called that OTP, or you've called that the UUID to generate a new random unique ID for you to use with this document you're creating. And you want to find that same OTP token to see if it exists. Then if it doesn't exist, you stop, right? So let's continue. What's the next thing we want to do? The next thing we want to do is we want to check if the OTP is even valid itself. In fact, when you're searching, the best way to even do it is to check the OTP and the purpose. So if there is an OTP token that is what the user supplies and the purpose is correct, then we can get the details of that OTP. Okay. Then once we get that, the next thing we want to do is when we get this OTP details is the details of the OTP from the back end. So now I want to compare the OTP that was saved on the database for this OTP token. That I want to compare the OTP with the one the user sends to see if they match. So I want to now do this. I'm going to say if OTP is not equals to OTP details dot OTP, then what we want to do is I'll just copy this one. I'll copy that and I'll say still the same, but I'll say the invalid OTP. Now, invalid OTP. So if it passes all this stage, then it means it's a legit OTP. So now what you might want to do is you might want to look for that user we saved here and update his verified email to true. So we'll do something like this. Oh, another thing we might want to check is we might want to check the purpose first before we even send it here. So you might want to check if the purpose is not equals to verify, if the purpose of checking that email, or sorry, of verifying that email is not equals to verify email, then that means you are sending the wrong OTP to this particular function to process. Okay, so I want to do this. I want to copy this and say invalid OTP purpose. Okay, invalid OTP purpose, then return it. So here you want to see, so after everything has gone on, run, and then you will see await user model dot find by ID and update, right? And then the ID you want to update is, or the ID, remember now you want to verify the user's email. So the ID you want to update would be the ID you that was stored in the OTP details. So you say the ID is OTP details dot underscore ID. Then what do you want to update on his details? Is something is email verified should now be true. Then you can then return res.send. Okay, you might want to send a message saying user email verified successfully. Okay, so what have we written so far? Verify token, verify OTP. It takes in OTP token, and the purpose for you verifying the OTP. It also it checks if it is verified email that you are sending, right? The purpose. So if it's not verified email, then it means you're sending the wrong purpose to this particular controller. Then the next thing we did is we now fetched the OTP that has the OTP token and the purpose, as the two of them has to match. Then we now check if while trying to do this, we don't see any, right? We don't see anyone. Then what we should do is we should try and we should tell the user that, oh, OTP is invalid, right? Then this one is just checking if the OTP you sent from front end is the same as the one that was saved on the database, in case the purpose and the OTP token is correct, but then the OTP itself you supply is not correct, it will know what to do. Then once it passes this stage, it means everything is all correct. Then you can then update the OTP, or you can update the user email verified to become true. Then tell him that you verified his email. Okay, so let's test what we've done so far. Let's test it. Okay, so we've not linked this verify OTP. So the first thing we need to do is we want to export it. So the first is verify OTP. The second one is okay, that's all. We will come here to router and we're going to user router. we'll go to router.put because it's supposed to modify something that already exists. Okay, so we could use patch. Router.patch auth controller verify OTP. Okay, so let's see this in action now. So let's try to test. So npm run dev. Okay, so let me try it. So let me delete the record I used the last time so that it won't tell me that email already exists. Because if I try it now, obviously it will tell me that the email already exists because I have tried using that before. So let me come and delete that email or that record that has that email. So I know you guys can't see my screen, but I'm deleting it. Okay, so let's try again. Let's go again. I'll send this request, and what did it show? Okay, OTP token is not defined. Let's come back here. Okay, so it's saying OTP token is not defined. At register 48. Let's come. OTP token is not defined in line 48. Okay. Okay. I know why. Now this is another thing. You should call this thing only once and use the value in your code. If I try to, so now if I try to do something like this and I'll come and call maybe this point where I'm sending back the user, where is it? On line 48. Maybe on line 48 now, and I'll come here and say this token, and I'll come and say v4. What will happen is this first v4 will generate a different OTP, or sorry, a different OTP token, while this second one will generate a different OTP token altogether, and you're wondering why your code is not working as expected, especially when you want to verify. So the best thing to do now is the same way we have generate OTP, we can just say generate OTP token equals to v4. That way, then you use this generate OTP token, which is the value, use it here, use it here. Okay, so we've done that. Now, be careful what happened, right? This thing, the script you wrote might have registered. In fact, it has registered the user already because remember that this line, before line 48, before line 48, create already ran, sending email already took place, but this is just the part uh, that failed, and which means that if we want to send the request again, so now see, if I come back here and say, let me try to send the request again to tell me that the email already exists, which is not far from the truth. So I would now need to come, here to my database and delete that or that record I just created. Then I'll come here and send the request again. Okay, so it's saying purpose is not defined. Let's come back here. Let's see why they didn't define our purpose on line 50. Okay. Okay, so the purpose would be um OTP model hmm, well, you can hard code the purpose. You can actually hard code it the same way you hard code it here. You can just say verify email. Okay, let me go and delete the what it created again. Okay, so now you notice user created successfully the OTP token, which is this long random code, which is universally unique. So then the purpose is verify email, as you can see. Now, the OTP itself has been sent to my email because it's not ethical to send OTP to front end. I know there's this name about the vibe coding now that front end or the back end send the OTP to the front end and then the front end puts the OTP and put other things there. It's not supposed to be that way. So let's try receipt patch. Let's try the next one. Let me see if I even registered it properly. So I'm going to just router. I'll say /verify /verify. Then coming here, I'll just copy this basically, but this will be /verify. The content type is the same. Then the so what you supply back now will be the OTP token, the purpose, which is this two that was sent to front end. So front end has to supply it back. The OTP token, the purpose, then the next thing will be the OTP itself. So if you come here, if you come, if you come here, you see when you're trying to verify, is the OTP token, and the purpose you're supplying. Once you supply that, every other thing will be done. So I'm heading to my email to check the OTP token that has been sent to me. You don't need to see my email. You don't need to. Okay, so base protocol then. Okay, so I've seen that's the token, right? Now, this is the reason why they say you should not share tokens with people. What if someone, maybe, let's take for example, this was a banking app. Someone knew your email and the person maybe put your email and then requested to reset the password. And then when the reset password or the OTP comes for resetting that password, the person calls you up since it is your email is going to come and tells you, oh, please, I'm calling from the customer care. There is an OTP you need to give us because so and so thing is happening to your account. And then you innocently read out your OTP. Once they put it and they send that request back to maybe your banking app. Your banking app will believe that it's you that is doing it because it's only the true owner of an account that should have an OTP, right? And this still boils down to um keeping your things private like your phone. Don't give it out to people you don't trust. Only people you trust will betray you, right? But even as at that, to reduce the risk, you don't give it out to people like that. Someone can reset your password without your knowledge, delete the email, and you will not easily know how to trace it. All right. So I won't talk about security anymore. We are not in a cybersecurity class. Now, before I send this request, I want to show you my MongoDB. I want to show you my MongoDB um, results. So if I come back to users and I refresh, you'll notice that we have full name. This ID, now if you notice, is not in quotes like how others are. It is there's an object ID here appended to it, then with bracket and this. This is why I was saying that this is an object ID. This is an object ID. Okay, and your full name, email is verified is false now, and the password. Remember that I talked about hashing the password in our last class. We created that and updated that. Beautiful. Now, when you want to let's verify this email. So I send that and it says email verified successfully. Sorry, I'm on VS Code now and I just clicked to send that request and it shows user email verified successfully. Now, let me come back to this place and I refresh. Okay. Okay, so it hasn't changed to false and that signifies that there is a bug somewhere. So let's come back here. Let's come back to our VS Code and let us trace that bug together. Okay. Okay, so we are back here. So let's see if this happens. Okay, if that happens, if that happens. So what we did here is we said find by ID and updates. User model and find by ID. So this is the ID we are looking for. Then we now say await email verified should be is email verified should be true. Okay. Find by ID and updates. Let me come and refresh it again. Okay, so this is now let's come back here. Let me refresh the whole database again. Let me refresh the database. We should see OTPs. Verify email. See a couple of them here. Right, and this is the last one we just tried. 048. Oh, you guys can't see that screen. You guys can't see that screen. Okay, so see it. We have a so what I did was I just came here and I refreshed all the database or I refreshed all the database under this localhost connection. So look at this. You come here, okay, you come to OTPs and we see that there are a couple of OTPs that are generated. And of course, once an OTP is used, the best thing to do is to remove it or to delete it. But I didn't want to delete it first in case we encounter any bug. So let's see. User ID, this object ID. Now let's come here. CA5, right? So this CA5, which is that particular user, and 8712. Let me check if that is what I have. 8712. Okay, so then let's come back and check it again. Let's come back and check VS Code. Okay. My idea. Okay, this is wrong actually. This is wrong. I'm checking OTP details ID, instead of taking the user ID from here, instead of taking the user's ID from here, okay? So if I try that again, so let me come back here. If I try this again, it shows exactly the same result. Then let's come back to MongoDB Compass to see. So let me come back to users and let me refresh here. So you see, now if you notice, apart from is verified being true, the updated at is being updated automatically. Okay, and remember that we used a timestamp, we declared a timestamp, or we said timestamps are allowed. Okay, so we check here. So we come back, we say timestamps. Remember this point. Remember this place. We here say timestamp is true. That is what is managing the timestamp. That is the created at and updated at properties of our data. Cool. Nice. Then what else? So we've done those two. Then let's try login. Let's see how we can implement login in this class. Okay. All right. So we come back here. Okay. Machine that okay, money that okay. Identity. You're asking, can we do the checking if OTP or token is not given before creating a user? And also do we check if the OTP in the request matches the one sent to? Yeah, so the last one you mentioned, see it here. See where we are doing that check. See where we are doing it. We are checking if the user, the OTP, this OTP here is the one that the user is sending in his request body, right? While this other one, while this other one is the one we fetch, this OTP details, the OTP is the value of the OTP from the back end or from the database. You know, we queried the database for an OTP token and purpose. So we check that here. Then we can check. So yeah, you can check if an OTP has been given before. In fact, that is the reason why I say once you finish verifying, or once you, let's say you finish doing this verification, the next thing you should do is you should then say OTP, say await OTP model dot you can use delete all if you want to clear, or maybe let's take for example someone generated an OTP 5 times, right? Where maybe the person tried to verify his email and he tried to verify it 5 times. Although I'm not sure that that would happen easily, because from what we've written, we said you can only verify once, right? And if you try to verify or if you try to register again with the same email, it's going to tell you that the email already exists. So we would rather want to say OTP model dot find, or you can say delete many, right? You can say delete many or find by ID and delete if you only want to delete that particular instance. So I like using delete many. So I'll say delete many where the user ID is equals to the OTP details dot user ID, and the purpose is verify email. So with that line of code now, what we've done is anywhere that you are verifying an email or any if you generated that um token, right? Let's say 3 times to verify an email, to verify your email, like 3, 4 times. After verification, all of them will be deleted. All of them will be deleted. Some people, instead of doing this, they might want to do the do many, they might want to do the delete many here before creating an OTP. So in case it happens that somehow, you try to create a second OTP to first delete the first one that was created before creating the second one for you. So now this already should tell you that there is no particular fixed way of this is how it must be. It has to do with what is the requirement of the company or the place you're working at. If they tell you, oh, people should only be able to have only one OTP, then you should be able to write a code that meets that standard or that meets that requirement, right? And different companies have different requirements. So you should understand how to work with those requirements. Okay. Someone said I spelled verify email wrongly. Okay. Verify email. Okay, thank you very much, Kingsley. Okay, thank you very much. So if you do this now, right? Anytime a user verifies his OTP, it will delete all OTPs that have to do with verify email for that particular user. Mhm. Then let's move on to login. I think this should be the exciting part for some people. Async, sure, login. Requests, remember this, that request represents the request object that is being sent to you from the client. The response is what you're sending back to the client, right? Or the object that has to do with handling what you want to send back to the client. Client. Hmm. When I mean client, I mean people that you're building your project for, because there are different types of clients these days. All right. So first, what do you want them to supply anytime they want to log in? So you should be able to supply email, be able to supply is equals to req.body. You should be able to supply email and password. Okay. Should be able to supply both of them. And the first thing you want to do is you want to check if the email even exists. So you say const email, or you just check if the user detail already even exists. Now, if you want to build this to standard, the first thing you're going to check is does the is the email even a valid email? What if the person just wrote random characters and just pass it as email? Right? Is it even a valid email? Even when you're registering, even when you're trying to register a user, you might want to check is the email valid? Is the password alphanumeric? Maybe does it contain the characters that are required it should contain and all those stuff. You can use Joy, right, to do that validation here before you even start working with the data that the user gives, right? So that is something very important that you have to do. You have to specify that. Some people will do something like full name should not be less than 3 characters. So if someone writes 3 characters as full name, then that's not his full name, right? Or 5 characters. So so that's something else that makes your security stronger and makes your platform more standard. because the truth is you shouldn't trust your users. Your users might be funny, right? So you want to say, so now let's check if that user with this email already exists. So say await user detail sorry, user model dot find one because it's not by ID. Find one, and then you want to say where the email is. The email, of course, remember what I said. If the key and value is the same, you just write email at once. Okay, so if there is no user detail, if there is no user detail, right, which means so now if there is no user that has that email registered on the back end on the user model collection, for example, or the user collection, this user detail will now become null, right? So what we are checking here is it true that user detail is null? If it is true that user detail is null, which means there is no user, we want to now say dot status. Status here is 404. 404 means not found. Then you can send a message, say user not found. Remember to add your return. You see this return? Remember to add it. There was a fintech that was built sometime, and I feel this was one of the issues when maybe you had an insufficient account. After when the code to check insufficient account was executed, there was no return statement to stop the transaction from happening. So the code would just return or respond that you don't have a you don't have an you have an insufficient balance, but then it still goes on to make the debit alert or to make the debit, which resulted in a whole lot of issue, right? So let's continue. We don't want to be in that situation, right? So if the user detail exists, if there's a user that has that email, for example, then the next thing you want to check is is the password correct? Does the password match? Remember, the person also supplied the password. So for this user that, for example, now exists, because if the user exists, this particular line of code will not run. Okay, so you now say, how do we check for that password? You now say const the passwords or passwords match. Password match should be equals to. Now remember that when you were trying to register, you use bcrypt to hash the password. It's the same bcrypt you use to compare the password. So you come here and say bcrypt.compare sync. Okay. So then this compare sync. Now what you would then write inside here is first it's the clear string, that's the plain string version of the password, which is the one the user is sending from front end. Then the next thing you pass is the encrypted version of the string, which was the one you saved on your database, so you want so these are the two things you want to compare. So the first one here is what the user sent, which is password, which is this password here. So you just write password, comma. The next one you want to write is um the one you got from the user's record. So you say user detail dot password, because that's the password that the user used to register. Okay. Then the next thing you want to do is if the passwords match, the next thing is to create a token which you will send back to the user to be using for subsequent protected route requests. Okay, so you want to do something like so first, now let me, before we even go further, when you compare these two passwords, when you use bcrypt.compare sync to compare the two passwords, this compare sync function or method is going to return true if the two of them match, if these two match, and it's going to return false if the two doesn't match. So at the end of the day, this passwords match, or even if you write the passwords match, is going to be either a true or a false. So when you compare these two passwords, what you get is either a true or a false. Okay, so you say the passwords match. So you say if you can say if passwords match, if passwords match equals to false, which means the passwords don't match, or you can say if the passwords do not match, this is the same thing as saying if is equals to false, right? So if the passwords do not match, you want to res dot status of 400 dot send, then you want to send a message saying passwords do not match, or invalid credential. Please don't tell them directly that their password do not match. So it means there is an account that be invalid credentials. So invalid credentials, not much grammar. So at this point, you've checked if their email is correct, their email is correct. If the password match, the passwords match. The next thing for you to do is const token should be equals to user not using so we need JSON web token at this point. So come here and say const JSON web token should be equals to JSON web token should be equals to require. I don't know if I installed it to J. Okay, I installed JSON web token. Beautiful. So if you don't have it, you will do npm install JSON web token on your terminal to install it. Then so you then say jw or JSON web token dot sign. Remember I said you sign a token, right? Now let's come back here. Dot. Let's see what we have in stock. Okay. So these ones are for errors, right? Not before error, token expired error, JSON web token error, and all the stuff. So these ones are like error classes. Now, this decode is used to view the properties of or the payload of a JWT or a token is used to, so whether the token, whether you have the private key or not of the token, you can just decode it to check what the token has, what the payload of the token is. This sign is used to create a JSON web token. Then this verify is used to verify also decodes, but verify also checks if the signature on that token is a valid signature, which means to verify you will need to provide a key, right? To verify, you need to provide a key to prove that, okay, this particular, what we are trying to decode now is legit, is legit. So let's sign, and when we want to sign, what do you want to sign? We can sign an object, for example. You can sign an object. So I might want to sign the user ID the user ID should be user details. I think it's user details I call it, or user detail dot ID, because I want to use the string version of the ID. Maybe the user's email, user ID dot email, or user details dot email. User detail dot email. Okay, so user ID, user email, and then the next thing I want to do is I'll send that token to the back, to the front end. So I'll say res.send, I'll say maybe message would be login successful, login successful, token, token should be, in fact, since token and token are the same name, right? Then it's also ethical for you, or it's also good for you to return the user's details. So you can do something like user detail, user detail should be equals to um so we want to say the email should be user detail dot email, then full name, user detail dot full name. So you can send other things if the other properties of that user, maybe if he has a role or he has a any other thing that you might want to send as a user detail. It's up to you. You put command here and you say that token should be that token. Okay, so you've successfully done a login route or a login controller. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to export it again. So you say login, you export it that way. Then you come back here to where you have your auth controller. Where is it? Okay, your router, your user router. Come and say login should be my auth auth waiting auth controller dot login. So doing that now, what is it saying? It's saying something, it's saying argument handler must be a function. Ah, okay. Why? Is it not function I gave it? Okay. Why it is saying so is because I didn't save. It's not saved. So I save it and I come back here. It's now showing connected to database. So let's try to log in as prince and princesses. Okay, so I'll come here. I'll just simply duplicate this. Let me check here again, sorry. Where is it? Is that router? Let me check. Should this is a post? Beautiful. So I'll come here, say, paste those details. And of course, we are not supplying full name, just email and password when we want to log in. So post full email and password, and then here it's login. Here it's login. We send that. Okay, so what does it say? Okay, beautiful. Private or secret or private key must have a value. Now, what is it saying? This is at where auth controller. Now this is the one we wrote. Home, this is auth controller line 114. Auth controller line 114. They even point it to where I'm supposed to do it. You see, if I didn't read this error message, I'll just be wondering, what is even happening now? Why is it that my code is crashing? This thing doesn't, you start panicking. But if you read and understand, now see, hot controller, line 114. You come to hot controller, we go to line 114. See it now. So now they are saying that the secret or private key must have a value. Now, if you don't know, when you sign or verify, right, there's the first thing you put there is a payload, which is the payload you want to add to the JWT when you're creating it. The second thing you want to put there is a secret or private key. And the secret or private key is what you use to sign all your tokens and verify all those tokens when they are sent back to the back end. And also that secret key shouldn't be something that should be exposed to the whole world to see and know, which means you're also going to put it in an environment variable. Remember, or mind you, we are never going to push environment variable on Git. It's not good. It's not. It's bad. So if someone gets if someone has your token, right, the person can create. Or sorry, if someone has your private key for your JWT, the person can create tokens for himself. He can, if he knows user's ID and user's email, he can use that to create a token and log in as that user. So let's come here. We can say O T no, we can say JWT what is this being called? JWT key. So JWT key would be a random, is random. Of course, key doesn't used to make sense. So you can just make it as random as possible. I just type anything on my keyboard. Now, so I just type anything actually. So I'll save that. I'll come back here. And I'll say comma process.env dot that's JWT key. Save it. Then let's try again. Let's come here. Let's click beautiful. Now you see this has been created, right? The let me see if I can illustrate something to you. Now look, this token you've created here, right, is going to be saved on the user's browser, right? And we've not, so for now, we're just creating one token. In the future, we'll see how we can use what is called access token and refresh token. Although probably we might not do it in this particular level. I think that would be an intermediate level stuff, right? But then I will try to explain how access token and refresh tokens work at the end of the day, right? So let me copy this token, right? This token will be saved on the browser, and anytime the user that is logging on that browser wants to make an inquiry about something that requires that he is logged in, or make a request that wants to verify who he is, this token, this JWT will be what will be used to know who he is. Then the user details can also be saved on the front end on the mobile app after login or during login. So let's come back here. Let's come back to our browser. Let's check something. We are going to end this class very soon, though. Okay. Okay, so look, let me remove this key sha. Let me remove it totally. Let me paste our own. So how did they know? Now, we just pasted our own here. We did not even give them any key. We did not give them any secret key. We just pasted it. The thing knows, so it just knows that this is the algorithm from this part of the token. This part of the token here which is the middle part that's separated by dots, is this part you're seeing here, this payload part, which you're seeing. User ID, the email. This IAT is automatically going to be there because that's when we created the token, right? But then it's asking us, okay, a secret, this is, what is it saying? A secret, at least, this is a bit long. There is no secret, and I guess there should be a place for me to actually input that secret. Enter a secret. So if I now enter my secret here, that is when it will now be able to decrypt. So let me just try it. Let me just try and copy that secret. Now, it it cannot verify if this token is correct or not. All right. It's just telling us what the payload is and the header is, right? But it can't verify until we supply the key we used to encrypt that token or to sign that token. Sorry. So I just went to copy the key and coming back, paste it here. You see, what is it saying? It's now saying that. So first, it tried to use this secret to validate this part of the code. Since this part is valid, since the secret, right, is able to verify it signed this signature, because this part is the signature of the JWT. Since this secret can validate this signature, then it is correct. If one digit or one letter disappears from here, the signature is invalid. Can you see? Now it's valid. Anything changes here. Okay, so if anything changes there, then what you have here will be corrupt. You see now it's starting to get corrupt as I delete more and more things. See? So that's how JWTs work. Okay, that's how JWTs work. And let's come back here. So let me stop sharing and let's come here. Okay, so well, we've been able to generate a token, and I would have loved to create a middleware that when you send requests to um let's say protected route, that when you send a request to the middleware intercepts that request and checks if the token in that request is valid before allowing it. But our time has gone far. We've spent a whole lot of time already, and we are going to do that in our next class. So is there any question based on what we've done so far? Anybody has a question to ask based on the what we've done? Although I know we didn't touch Postgres and SQLize in this class. We didn't touch that. We would touch it in our next class. And I think in our next class we might also do forget password. So how to do forget password, reset password, maybe with OTP. We'll see how we can do that. Yeah. So is there any question? Anybody has any questions to ask? Okay, so in the absence of any questions so far, I would like to call it a day. Thank you very much for attending today's class, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.